Welcome back to the Noble Pursuit podcast, where we have honest conversations that challenge men to pursue purpose, lead well, and leave a lasting legacy. Today's guest is someone who has spent his career standing for life, advocating for the unborn, and equipping others to speak truth with both conviction and compassion. Dr. William Lile, often known as the ProLife Doc, is a board-certified OBGYN with decades of experience caring for women and delivering babies. In this conversation, we'll discuss fatherhood, the role men play in protecting and leading their families, the realities of the abortion debate, and how fathers can engage these issues with wisdom, compassion, and conviction. Please welcome Dr. William Lile. All right. Hi, Dr. Lile. Thank you so much for joining me on the Noble Pursuit podcast. If you wouldn't mind, could you just give everybody a brief rundown about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name's Dr. Bill Lile. I practice obstetrics and gynecology. I've delivered over 5,000 babies of my 30 years. I'm board certified. I'm licensed to practice medicine in multiple states. And it was back in 1999 when I took over the practice, which happened at that point to be the largest abortion clinic in the Florida Panhandle. I just finished my residency. We took over the practice, and business-wise, it wasn't a good plan because they didn't do any obstetrics. They only did GYN, but we just felt called of God. We had the former owner sign a 2-year restrictive covenant, a non-compete, and we took over the practice. And on day one, we actually stopped all abortions. And now on the Florida Panhandle, from the border with Mobile, Alabama, all the way to Tallahassee, Florida, there still is not a single abortion clinic here on the Florida Panhandle. But then we actually realized that we had all the staff stay. We said, you're welcome to stay, but if you refer for an abortion, tell them about another place. That would be grounds for dismissal. Everybody stayed. Everybody stayed for years, and they actually felt they had been brought out of a very dark area, was what they all told us, because this had been their lives, taking the lives of babies. But it was on a Sunday after church when I went to the office for the first time alone and with my own key. And I'll never forget, the abortion clinic was actually upstairs, and that's where the surgical suite was. And I'll never forget going up those stairs for the first time. And I thought, how many thousands and thousands of moms have walked up these same stairs with a baby on the inside, then spent 20, 30 minutes upstairs and walked down without that baby? And I turned the corner, and there was the actual surgical suite, the exam table, the stirrups, the abortion machine, all the instruments all set up for Monday's abortions. And that's when I really felt called of God to make this known. So we did a presentation at my church, which led to another church. And as of July of last year, we shifted out of medicine and into full-time ministry. And we'll speak around the country, around the world this year, probably 70 or 80 times. So we're involved with TPUSA, Live Action, Sidewalk Counselors, Students for Life, Heartbeat International, National Association of Christian Lawmakers, just trying to let people understand that all patients are created in the image of God, and abortion is an attack on that image of God in the womb out of a hatred for God. So first, this is a spiritual battle, but we want to equip people with tools that they can use to be victorious. But we also want to discuss forgiveness and healing, because right now we've got 65 million men and women who are post-abortive, and they are hurting. They need healing. Healing comes from forgiveness, and true forgiveness only comes through the blood of Jesus Christ and the gospel. So the spiritual battle shouldn't be led by a bunch of obstetricians and politicians. The spiritual battle should really be led by our pastors and priests from their pulpits. So we just want to equip them, equip the pro-life generation, and to convince the younger kids on our college tour that might say, I'm pro-abortion, it's a woman's right to choose. Give them the science, because all true science will always defend God's preborn in the womb because of God's love for his preborn.
So before you took over that clinic, was there like a specific moment in your life where you're like, I really want to be the type of guy that stands up for life?
Well, I grew up pro-life. I mean, my parents led me to Christ probably when I was about the age of 10. And I can remember my parents going to a pregnancy resource center banquet in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, up where we grew up. And ironically, 30 years later, I ended up keynoting and speaking at that pregnancy resource center. And I went to medical school. I really wasn't thinking about obstetrics. I had a lot of injuries when I was a kid. I was in the hospital a lot. I had plastic surgery, had, traumatic surgeries, appendectomy. And I just kind of got, interested in medicine, but I really went into medicine thinking I was going to do either ER or maybe trauma surgery. That was more of my personality. But it was actually on an orthopedics rotation as a medical student when the chairman of the Department of Orthopedics saw me reading a book called Williams Obstetrics. And he goes, "What are you doing reading Williams Obstetrics on my orthopedic rotation?" I said, "I don't know. I just like it." He goes, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about either trauma or ER." He goes, "No." He said, "If you're reading Williams Obstetrics on my rotation, you should be doing obstetrics if you like it that much." And I thought about it and I said, "Yeah." And I really did like obstetrics. I mean, there were so many great things. You got to meet somebody when they were young. You got to be with them, and the only happy time when they're going to the hospital, nobody's happy about getting a knee replaced or a hip replaced, but to go to the hospital and having a baby, yeah, that's happy times. But then you also got to, help women through the later, times of life. I mean, whether they're facing cancer or just menopause, but you got to know the patients. But then you also got to do surgery. I mean, delivering babies, I've done that 5,000 times. But surgeries are amazing. And robotics were not available when I was in residency, but they sure became, effective and available. So you got to do surgery, you got to know your patients, you got to deliver the baby. So that's what attracted me. So went to med school up in New Jersey. I did my residency at the University of Florida, and it's been an amazing journey delivering over 5,000 babies.
So I was telling you beforehand that the podcast mostly focuses on men and fatherhood. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the whole pregnancy process. What is something that men generally don't understand about what's going on in the woman's body as she is, preparing to give birth over the
Sure.
course of 9
Well,
months?
Well, first, every single pregnancy involves a guy. I mean, there was one. It was like 2,000 years ago. It was Mary, and there was no guy involved in that conception. But every other pregnancy involves a guy. And from that moment of conception, half the genetics of that baby came from the mom, and half of the genetics of that baby came from dad. And then we go from one cell. The genetic material doubles and it divides into two, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. And that new person is working its way down through the fallopian tube to the uterus. And then it embeds in the lining of the uterus and it continues to develop and grow. 10 weeks into a pregnancy, we can see over 1 billion cells, half the genetic material from mom, half from dad. Genetically unique and different from the other 8 billion people on the planet, but half of that baby is the dad. And half the time from that moment of conception, that is a boy, just like the dad is a boy, because there are only two genders. There is male and female, and don't let anybody lie to you and tell you otherwise. There are only two. But men are very involved. And even at 10 weeks, which is still up to the point where a woman could use the abortion pill, the systems are already set up. We can see the baby's heart beating 23 days after conception. We can see at 10 weeks that we already have a neurologic system, we have a digestive system, we have a muscular system, skeletal system. The things are all, there and present. The baby just needs to get bigger. And so we use the tools of modern obstetrics to show this to the mom and to show this to the dad that this is not just a blob of tissue. That is a lie.
So kind of going off of that, what would you personally say to a guy who's sitting across from you and just found out that his partner is pregnant and he's sitting there and he's just like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I have what it takes to be a dad. How would you respond to that question?
Well, first, reproduction has already happened and let him know it's not that you're going to be a dad. You are a dad. That's already happened. We see a baby there on the inside and say, congratulations to you. We're going to help you celebrate this. Have you ever been a dad? No, because when a first time dad has never been a dad before. So we're going to walk you through it. Their role is to be a defender and a protector, to look at, I mean, Proverbs 24:11 says, rescue those who are being led away to death. Psalm 82, give justice to the weak and the fatherless. So if you see somebody who doesn't have a father, who, is, already lacking in protection, not only, give protection and guidance to the weak, but also those who don't have a dad. And so many of these dads who come into a pregnancy center come out of a household situation where there wasn't a dad. We are adopted into the family of God. We're adopted into the body of Christ. So we need to adopt these men who might not have had a dad, adopt them, guide them, help them on that journey, give them some leadership, give them some guidance, share the biblical role of them. We want to share forgiveness, hope, but also share that there is great joy, which comes from a pregnancy, it comes from a baby, and that there are centers and there are ministries, there are women, and there are men that can help men and women through this new stage of life. And it's not that, well, I'm not ready to be a mom or I'm not ready to be a dad. Well, reproduction already happened. You just haven't delivered that baby. And then even tell them about our own families. Did I have challenges? Absolutely. I was still in residency. I was working 80, 90 hours every week and trying to support a wife and then a child. But, the journey is absolutely worth it. And, when even I've had people who have been considering abortion as patients, or when I've had patients who have already taken the abortion pill, and I've had couples come in and they've called us and they said, listen, we took the abortion pill. We have some real regrets. Is there any antidote? And we actually have an abortion pill reversal network, and we have over 1,000 doctors and nurse practitioners, which are there to help provide the antidote for the abortion pill actually after somebody has taken it. And so I've done that. I've attempted that 28 times. I've been successful 22 times. Nationwide, we've now successfully reversed the effect of the abortion pill 8,000 times. But here's the significance. When those couples come back into the office after we've delivered their babies, and whether it's the 2-week visit or the 6-week visit, and you're sitting them and the baby's all dressed up and the baby's obviously being loved and cared for, you can't help but sit down with them and say, remember where we were 7 or 8 months ago? Remember how we were sitting and having a discussion on whether you were going to allow this baby to live or not? And you can't help but weep with them. I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe how close I came to taking the life of this baby, which is now the joy of my life. And every mom knows she would do anything for her baby. And dads know that too. They're like, you come near my baby, you touch my baby, you harm my baby, you're going to have to mess with me. My job as a dad is to lead in the guy, but I'm also a defender and a protector of not that baby, my baby. And so we have to let guys know this is an amazing blessing. It might not have been all the circumstances that you might have thought about in the future. It might have not even been the right timing, but we want you to make that decision so that you can experience the biggest joy that you're ever going to have in your life.
So I think one of the roles of a father is to counter the lies that culture tries to tell them. And as far as abortion goes, I feel like the things that we hear the most frequently here when patients come in is that they've heard that abortions are safe and that, there's times where they're medically necessary. So if a dad is trying to counteract these things when he's talking to his own kids, what are some truths that he can tell them when it comes to those 2 points specifically to be like, this isn't true. Here's what is actually true.
Sure. Let's talk about patient safety, first of all. First, I've delivered 5,000 babies and I've delivered twins and triplets and quadruplets. But whenever I have a pregnant patient come into my office, I actually have two patients. And if she has twins, I've got three. And if she has trips, I've got four. And if she has quadruplets, then I've got five patients because we are diagnosing, treating, and curing babies while we're in the womb. We're the high risk referral center here in Pensacola, Florida, where the highest risk moms and babies come to our center for their care. And so we are now doing, even at my hospital, we have done blood transfusions to the babies on the inside of the womb as early as 8 weeks, as far as 18 weeks gestation, not even halfway through. But now nationwide, we're doing open heart surgery for babies in the womb where the babies in their hand get their own IV, their own anesthesiologist, their own pain medicine. We're doing vascular brain surgery, spina bifida corrective surgery, laser vascular surgery. I mean, these are patients on the inside. So is abortion safe? Well, my life has been dedicated to having safety for patients. Well, an abortion is going to kill half of the patients that are there. And so if you are losing the lives of half of your patients, that is not healthcare. And there are complications even with the abortion surgically, whether it's infection or perforation of the uterus or hemorrhage, but there are even lots of complications when it comes to the abortion pill. There was a study that was released April 28th of last year called from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, where they looked at 865,000 women who had been prescribed the abortion pill. Now, women have been told, oh, you're going to have a little bit of bleeding, cramping, and pain, and then you'll pass some tissue. That's all they're told. And they say, like, it's going to be safe and it's just going to be a little heavier period. What's the reality? We were originally told that the complication rate for women who had taken the abortion pill, we were told by the FDA that the complication rate would be less than 0.5%. What's the reality from the Ethics and Public Policy Center article of 865,000 women? They found over 94,000 women had severe or life-threatening complications. I mean, there were 40,000 women who had to go to the ER. There were 28,000 women who had hemorrhaging. There were 24,000 women who had to go back to the operating room and have residual tissue like placenta and even baby parts surgically removed. There were 12,000 women who had taken the abortion pill who had to be treated for infection or even life-threatening sepsis because of the infection from this tissue from a dead baby that is left behind. But also, the number one pregnancy-related cause of death of women in the first trimester of pregnancy is still a ruptured ectopic or tubal pregnancy, where the pregnancy happens in the tube, but it didn't actually make it down to the uterus, and that pregnancy implanted in a tube or someplace else, but then it ruptured. And they had over 3,000 cases of women who had taken the abortion pill, but then had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I mean, my daughter just had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy 3 weeks ago. We were lecturing in Hawaii. My wife had to fly back. When the surgeon went on the inside, the pregnancy had ruptured, there by the tube, and she had over 800 cc's of blood in her belly from a ruptured ectopic or tubal pregnancy. And when we look at these women, when they receive, say, the abortion pill, they're told, you're going to have bleeding, cramping, and pain. Well, what are the symptoms of a rupturing ectopic or tubal pregnancy? They're the exact same: bleeding, cramping, and pain. We're having so many women who are coming into our ERs who are having these complications, whether it's infection or hemorrhaging, or they need to go to the OR, or maybe they have an ectopic pregnancy. When the abortion pill was first approved and became available, it was mandatory that it had to be dispensed by an obstetrician or some sort of a surgeon that could handle complications. They had to have an ultrasound. They had to have multiple visits, and they had to have follow-up. Now what do we have? Now we have the abortion pill available mail order. And when it comes to a pregnancy, of all pregnancies between 1 and 2%, 1 or 2 out of 100 statistically will be ectopic. So every time they send out 100 abortion pills, 1 or 2 of them will have an ectopic pregnancy. And the abortion pill is not a treatment for an ectopic pregnancy. So we're having more and more women showing up in our emergency rooms with complications. So it's not as safe as Tylenol. I mean, that's what the quote is. I mean, if you take Tylenol as directed, it is incredibly safe. The abortion pill is not. First, it's going to probably 98% of the time kill that patient of mine, that baby on the inside of the womb. But also, almost 11% of the time, that woman will have a severe or life-threatening complication. So yes, there are dangers to both a surgical abortion and there are dangers to a chemical or the abortion pill abortion.
And what about when people say that, oh, sometimes there are times when abortion is medically necessary? What is your response to that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're the high risk referral center. And are there times in a pregnancy where we need to deliver a baby early? Absolutely. Moms can develop severe preeclampsia. They used to call it toxemia. Moms can develop a cardiomyopathy, uncontrolled diabetes. There are health conditions which are aggravated or even caused by the pregnancy. But the cure for the mom to save her life is not taking the life of the baby and stopping the baby's heart. The cure is what we use the term maternal fetal separation, where yes, sometimes there are times where we need to deliver the baby, but it's the delivery of the baby that saves the life of the mother, not the taking of the life of the baby. And we have had babies. We had a baby in Iowa delivered at 21 weeks and 0 days. Baby weighed less than a pound, and that baby was delivered for a medical emergency and actually went home. Recently, up at University of Alabama, Birmingham, north of us, we had a baby that was delivered at 21 weeks and 1 day. And yes, that baby went home. So are there medical and reasons where we need to deliver a baby early? Yes, to end the pregnancy, because all pregnancies will end. All pregnancies will terminate. The question is, are we going to have a live baby or not? And when we have a mom, say she's 22, 24, 25 weeks, sometimes we need to deliver those babies. But our technology, as far as saving the lives of these babies in our NICUs, continues to advance all the time. When I was in residency training 30 years ago, it was unusual if we had a baby delivered at 26 weeks gestation to survive. But now we have proof that we have babies who are surviving, weighing less than 1 pound, delivering at 21 plus weeks. So, but that also helps the mom mentally and psychologically, because she will always know she did absolutely everything to save that life of that baby. So deliver a baby early? Yeah, it happens. But does taking the life of the baby protect the life of the mother? Absolutely not.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your own fatherhood journey. Is there something specific that being a doctor taught you about being a dad?
Absolutely. I mean, it really has to do with the amazing creation. I mean, as a doctor, just to think that we had one cell from me, one cell from my wife came together. And even at that one cell, which is the size of a grain of sand, that one cell had all the blueprints and genetic material that was going to become me, become my daughters, or become my wife. And at that moment of conception, we're genetically unique. So I look at and then we go from one cell to 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. I'm sitting here, you're sitting there, probably about 60 trillion cells. And from a spiritual standpoint, we know that we are not born in the image of God, we're created in the image of God. And that's at that moment of conception. And so when we look at that gift and we think 60 trillion cells from just one cell, it's like, I don't know what my schedule is tomorrow. How do cells divide and they're exactly the same? And then one cell says, you know what? I don't want to be an exact copy of all these other cells around me. I'm going to start the entire circulatory system, the heart, all the arteries, all the veins. I'm going to start that whole thing. And another cell says, I don't want to be like everybody else either. I'm going to start the entire skeletal system, all the bones. And another one says, I don't want to be like you either. I want to start the entire digestive system. And so just that miracle, I mean, we spend our lives studying anatomy so that we can operate on patients and save their lives. And it's amazing development of anatomy, but that it comes from just one cell that changes to 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and develops all these different miraculous systems. You know that there's something special about that life.
One thing I always challenge guys to do is to think about the end of their life and think about what they would want their kids to say about them as they're, leaving this life behind. Um, just because I feel like if you can think about that and you can think about the type of man that you want them to say that you are, then it makes it a lot easier for you to focus on those types of things. So for you, what do you hope your kids say about you when you're gone?
I hope that they identify. I mean, moms and dads are different. I mean, we have different roles, but we have different genetics. I mean, a mom is more of a nurturer, a dad is more of a protector and a leader. You look at how moms and dads play with the kids, it's very, very different how they play with the kids, where the moms will be like, make sure you, put on your helmet, put on your knee pads, put on your elbow pads. Dads are more down on the floor and wrestling with the kids. The first thing I want my kids to think about me was that dad did everything in his power while he was here on earth in order to defend, the preborn in the womb and to be a godly man. He, knew he'd get maybe 80, 90 years here on earth. And there's a role that men are supposed to play. And God gives us a lot of those directions and roles. And I would hope that they would say that he was a godly man, a man of faith, who wanted to do everything to serve the kingdom of our Lord while he was here on earth. I mean, you look at David's mighty men. We talk about these warriors. It doesn't talk about David's mighty women. It talks about David's mighty men. And then even in the New Testament, Ephesians 5, where husbands love your wives as Jesus loved the church, where a husband's role should be like, you know what? If it comes down to it, a husband, a dad should be willing to give his life for his wife or for his kids. And then you look at Isaiah, 117, where scripture says, bring justice to the fatherless and to defend. So men have a role to be a leader of their family, to be willing to give their lives as Jesus gave his life for the church, but they actually would be a man. They'd be a defender and a protector.
So my last question for you, for guys who want to find out more about what you do and just about your ministry, where can they go and find out more about that?
Our website's real easy. It's prolifedoc.org, and there's lots of free information. We're on almost all the social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and there's lots of information there as far as the fetal development, the baby on the inside. But then there's other groups that are available. There's a great website called Men for Life, and I know you've had Sean Corcoran on your show as well. And Sean, you can go and look at one of the back episodes. Sean had a challenge and Sean made a bad decision and Sean's girlfriend became pregnant, but Sean wanted to become a dad. But then Sean didn't have any input on whether he could have an impact as far as whether that baby was born. Well, sadly, that young lady chose to abort his child, and then he had some real challenges after that. But saved by the grace of God, he's been forgiven, and now he's using his skills as an attorney to help other men who are in similar situations. But, prolifedoc.org, lots of resources there. And we even have a 10-chapter curriculum that people can go through. Has video training discussed that we've been discussing this morning. It has workbooks, it has role-playing exercises, because we want you to become not only an expert in raising your own child, but we want you to be an expert in defending the lives of other babies that are in the womb, because that's the role of men. That's your God-given role. You have an XY chromosome. Guess what? You are created to be a defender and a protector, and that would include the least of these, the children, and especially those children that are inside the womb.
Well, Dr. Lyle, thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for spending a few minutes with me this morning. I appreciate it.
It's been an honor. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for your ministry. And it's an honor to share this truth. And God bless everybody.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode. You can find out more about us by going to our website, noblepursuit.org, or by following us on Instagram at noblepursuitmen. You can find out more information about today's guest by looking in the description below.